If you desire a life beyond just checking the boxes of success and want to blaze a trail of purpose, fulfillment, and massive success, this episode is for you. So, hello, beautiful souls. Oh my goodness. Joining me today is my guest, Stefanie Elsperman, business and life purpose mentor, host of the Fully Alive podcast. She has studied under mentors, amazing people like Tony Robbins, and many world-class business coaches, shamans, and healers, worked with hundreds of high performers worldwide to create purpose-led lives. I love that, and that's what I'm all about too. Welcome to the show, Stefanie.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
So let's back up and tell us your story when you found yourself needing to find your own life purpose.
Yeah. So I feel like I've had multiple different rock bottoms, but I'll give you a couple snippets of each that have really led to this feeling of purpose. And the first actually happened very early within my life. It happened when I was around 17. I found myself in the modeling world. I had been scouted by a modeling scout, and then that took me all the way to Paris Fashion Week. And I remember walking through there, and there's the paparazzi all around. There's the opportunities and the designers and just all of this glitz and glam. I remember just being blinded by that feeling of like, oh my gosh, like this is success that people talk about from a very early age, like getting paid and all these different things. But behind closed doors, I was absolutely miserable. And I was dealing with my own struggles with anxiety, with depression, with an eating disorder. And ultimately, it's like I looked okay for the cameras and I looked okay when I was on a job because I was checking those boxes of societal success. But then when I was by myself, I felt completely unfulfilled. I remember at one time my mom asked me a question. She said, Steph, is there anything that even lights you up anymore? Like anything that you're passionate about? And I was so uncomfortable with that question, I just shut down. I said, don't ask me that, because I had absolutely no idea. And that was one of those little micro moments where I was like, whoa, have I really lost myself so far into chasing societal success that I don't even know who I am or what I actually want? I'm just doing it because I'm good at it, or I'm just doing it because other people say I should do it. And so ultimately I ended up reaching a rock bottom point where after a few different experiences, I hit my knees and I was sobbing on my bathroom floor, and I had this moment, this fork in the road where there was part of me that was like imagining my life until I was 40. And I thought to myself, gosh, if this is my life until I'm 40 of just like running this rat race and going over and over, then I don't want it. And I don't want to be here. But then there was another voice within me that said there has to be something different. And that was one of those like rock bottom spiritual awakening, if you will, or really just a wake up call. Like there is another way. There's a way where you're actually in alignment with yourself. And so from that moment, I left modeling. I left everything that I thought made me successful or who I was or gave me a sense of purpose in this world. And I really started to dedicate myself to my own self-improvement and self-growth to find who I was and what actually lit me up, which then led me to spirituality, self-growth, and all of that good stuff from there.
Yeah, I think you had a typical story of buying a one-way ticket to Bali, right?
Yeah.
We hear so many of these stories. I love it. I love it. I love it because that's when you really put yourself out there. Like there's no return, right? You are dedicated to this growth and going out to find your purpose. So when you don't live a life with purpose, what happens?
Yeah, I think there's a feeling of emptiness, you know, of you're doing all the things and it might look really good on paper and you're doing all the right things. Maybe you have found a level of success, you're making the money, you have the lifestyle, but ultimately deep in your heart, there's burnout and there's emptiness because it's like, what am I actually doing this for?
Yeah, very true. So what was your first step to finding your new purpose?
I think for me, it was like getting really clear on what do I want? out of this life? And sometimes those answers come really fast and the minute that you ask. And sometimes it's more of a slow trickle. And for me, I just consistently was asking myself, like, what do I actually want? And then from there, following the little threads of what was lighting me up in my life. I know I went through a whole experimentation phase where I was like, ooh, yoga, that looks amazing. Let me go into yoga and let me do all this. And I became a yoga instructor. And then I was like, ooh, I like social media. Like, let's start a blog and let's do this. And I just started following these threads. And every single time I followed a thread, there was a little nugget of wisdom that came from that led me to the next thing and the next thing, and the next thing. So while I would love to say it was like this perfect 5-step protocol that I followed to find my purpose and start finding myself, of course, it's never just that. And it was really through that process of following those nudges and then following it up with action, even when it was uncomfortable.
I love that. I love that because we think other people have it all good, right?
Yeah.
They have this linear process of definite blueprint, how they went from point A to point B and everything is good, but yet it's not true. We pivot all the time, and it's okay to pivot. It's okay to try new things because society tells us it's not okay, right? Society tells us that we should stick to it and really work hard towards our goals. Yes, it's true, right? There's the determination, dedication, and not giving up part, but you really have to evaluate and reflect on whether that giving up is just you afraid to do the work, or is it really not in alignment? There's a huge difference.
There is such a huge difference, and it's so nuanced. And I always tell my clients, it's like sometimes finding that sweet spot of knowing what your intuition is to pivot versus you giving up because it's actually uncomfortable. It takes a little bit of trial and error where you go in one direction, you're like, oh, I actually realized like, maybe I just like quit too soon. And then you go in another direction, maybe you recognize that you're like, oh no, that was me pushing through. And over time, you start to understand like the language of your own intuition and the nuance of your direction and what that feels like.
Yeah. It's funny how as coaches, we all ask our clients questions, right? Mm-hmm. So the best thought-provoking questions for me that I've ever heard of is, how can you better embarrass yourself? Because when we're going for our dreams, right? When we're going for those goals that we really, really will light us up, it's also embarrassing. It's not easy.
No. Like the questioning, I remember when I first started dedicating myself to even just personal growth and putting myself out there and creating a blog back when blogs were big. I had so many people be like, what are you doing over there? So many people question different things, and it takes a hefty dose of courage to be like, I know myself enough. And that's where purpose really comes in. It's like when you know your purpose, there's such a strong backing behind you that you can take that embarrassment. You can take people questioning because you know you're in it for something greater than just because you're doing it. If you're just doing it to do it, or you're doing it to gain success, you're not going to last a day, because there is so much that goes into actually building something that is beyond what it is that you can even imagine within your mind, and definitely beyond societal standards of success.
Yeah. And it's funny, another question that I really enjoy asking is, what do you enjoy doing so much that you even forget to eat and poop? Right? And you hold your pee so that you can continue with what you got going, because you love doing it so much.
Yes, I love that. Like what you could get lost in for hours, which is so beautiful.
Yeah, like me and Stefanie were having a really fun conversation. It's my morning. I'm on the West Coast. So this is my first call of the day, and it really lights me up. So it doesn't feel like work at all. It's so fun for me, and it fuels my mind to be talking to amazing guests like yourself. And that's what life purpose is all about. It's really to provide your value to the world. And while, hey, even if we don't make money from this, we still love what we do. But, money always comes as a byproduct of what you love to do.
Yeah. 100%. It's like if I also like looking at the energetics of everything, where it's like if you tap into the energetics of what it feels like to be passionate about your life, what it feels like to be excited about the work that you do, there's a natural magnitude to that energy. And what I call your magnetism, when you're in that magnetic state, you're going to take the action steps that are going to put you ahead within life, and that also is going to create wealth and success. But B, you're a natural magnet for opportunities to come your way, whether that is through money, whether it is through people reaching out and saying, hey, I want to have a conversation, or clients, or whatever it might be. There's got to be that energy of excitement and knowing what you're in it for.
Yeah. And I think the key word there is action, because you can be thinking about what your life purpose is for 3 years.
Yeah.
Right? I worked with a client. She wanted life purpose as well. And because she shut down her brick and mortar store from the pandemic, she was home for almost 3 years, thinking how she didn't have a life purpose anymore because she wasn't working with people in person and her store was closed. And I think really is to just get out of the house. That's like the first step, right? You can be thinking about something forever for the rest of your life, but really it just takes one step, and that one small step forward is all you need. So it's really the action that matters, because as soon as you take action, you might realize it's not your purpose, but that helps you along the way as well.
Yeah. I love that. And I typically will break down purpose into 3 different levels of purpose. The first level being like, what is like our purpose as human beings in this world? And everyone's going to kind of have their own definition, but this isn't even based on what it is that you do, right? So for example, if your business closes down during the pandemic, it's not that you don't have a purpose anymore. Like your purpose to me on that spiritual level is to love, to grow, and to serve. So if you're constantly learning how to grow and evolve within your life, that gift, for me, that's like my greatest sense of purpose, right? If you're learning how to love yourself and others even more and be in that energy of love. And if you're showing up to serve something so much greater than you, that's already one level of purpose. And then I have what we call the next level of purpose, which is more of like the tangible purpose that you're talking about, where it's like taking action in the world and really looking at what is the work in this world that is aligned with your purpose and what you are here to do based on your skills, your past experiences, your vision, and what you want, your passions, your desires. I call it your purpose code, right? Which is really determining what do you do actually. And then from there, it's also micro daily purpose, right? It's like, how are you acting within your life with purpose, with intention? How do you make decisions on even the smallest scale with intention, with purpose, such that you feel it every single day? So I think it's really interesting, right? Where like somebody will go through this, huge life change. And it's like, what is my purpose? And it takes the action, and it also takes remembering like, hey, and purpose is who I am rather than just what I do anymore, which then can fuel the action.
Yeah. And a lot of times I think people think that what their work around their life purpose is too much for now. Like they don't have the money to start. They don't have the resources. They don't have the help. And I think that's what we are here to break down, that if you put your head to it, if you open the doors, if you let the doors open for you, if you're open to those new opportunities, right? When you have that mindset of openness, that's when you start to see new opportunities. For example, this client, she didn't work for several years. She was draining down her savings, and she didn't have the money to start. So she went out eventually to finding a partner who was renting out their office. So he joined the team, and there you have the rent, right? And then she found another partner who wanted to just invest and not do the work. And she had the time on her hand. So it's about really getting out and taking that first step again. And through the process, she found her purpose again, is to start her new company. So yeah, that's where we're here, is really to support your dreams and not having burnout. Yeah. We're doing it the right way to really, because this world needs more alive people. I always say this, we need more alive people. We want to wake up, talk to people, everyone who's alive, not just like going through the motions of each day.
Yeah, I love that. It is beautiful.
Perfect. So for someone who is looking for more life purpose, one last tip from Stefanie.
I always say there is no should. There is no should. And for me, like that is, I think it's really easy to get caught up in doing something that's not aligned with your purpose because you feel like you should, based on what other people say, based on what you feel like you're good at within this world. And in reality, it's either you want to or you don't want to. You'll do it or you won't do it. And that's it. And when you take away the should, you also take away doing something for somebody else's expectations of you.
Yes, take out the woulda, shoulda, coulda.
All of that.
You know, I say all the time, oh, I should have done this. You know, you should do that. But I catch myself. I'm like, oh, Lucy, no, right? Have that awareness. It comes out naturally. Even when I teach my clients not to say these things, I say it myself. But all you have to do is be aware. And as long as you have this awareness, you can change your thought immediately in the next moment. And that's okay.
Yeah, I love that.
Perfect, Stefanie. So in your coaching world, is there a favorite quote that you go by?
I'm going to actually use a quote from my mom. She is full of them. So this is not an author that you can find, but she always says there's always more love, never less. And so every single time you feel like you're going into, whether it's a tough conversation or whether you're taking an action step for this first time and you feel really uncomfortable and you're like, oh my gosh, could I lose everything? Am I putting it all on the line? There is always more love on the other side of that action step, never less. Even if that love looks like a challenge, it's always leading you deeper and deeper into the truth, which is love.
Thank you, Stefanie's mom. We love you.
She's wonderful. Her name's Jackie.
Awesome. Okay, so where can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Stefanie Elsperman, as well as TikTok at Stefanie Elsperman. And my podcast is the Fully Alive podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.